The Age of Innocence, directed by Martin Scorsese, based on a novel by Edith Wharton, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Winona Ryder. It is a kind of an outlier in Scorsese's filmography because it's not a gritty crime mob film, it's a romance dressed in period clothes. Although Scorsese himself has stated that this is his most violent film, referring, of course, not to physical violence but to the emotional hardships that the characters have to endure. The story takes place in the 1870s, mainly in New York, and centers around three characters. Newland Archer, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, is a dashing lawyer engaged to the young and innocent May Welland, Ryder. Both are part of the New York elite, both come from wealthy and respected families. And then the third player appears on stage, Countess Ellen Olenska, May's cousin, played by Michelle Pfeiffer. She comes to town, escaping from Europe from the clutches of her unhappy marriage. As beautiful and smart as she is also new to this society and its rules. And a certain disregard for those rules that she displays is often taken as a slight or lack of manners by others. It also doesn't help her that her escape from the husband is considered wrong, and there's pressure from all around to make her go back and basically be a good wife. Pressure that Newland Archer does not agree with. He supports the independence of the Countess, who he knew from his younger days, and he kind of inserts himself between the elites and her, and in the process, an old flame is rekindled, and Archer finds himself in doubt whether he loves May or maybe Ellen. So I think the movie has two distinct themes. One is that very personal one, stemming from the love triangle, and it has to do with one's feelings and acting on them or not. That question of should you follow your heart and do something, or should you follow the rules, do what is expected of you. It explores the dreams of what may be and regrets of what could once have been but wasn't, the wasted chances and opportunities, the wrongs of the past, the fears of doing something that maybe you perhaps shouldn't. And secondly, in the wider sense, that conflict between heart and instinct and the rules is applied in the wider sense as a critique of certain social norms. Now, this obviously has to do mainly with the intricacies and specifics of that certain group of people at that certain time and place. But I do believe that at least some of that critique can be extrapolated, can be seen as Scorsese jabbing at some of the customs that are still around to this day, some of the society's views, put them this way. The obvious one is the question of a woman's independence in comparison to that of a man. The other is that unspoken obligation to do what your families and benefactors expect you to do, even if it stands in the way of your own happiness, foregoing that happiness just to fit in with others. I think the film tackles those subjects quite well, and I was certainly engaged throughout it, maybe more so in the first half, when it still establishes its themes, rather than the second, when it just expands them and slows the pace down a little. I think acting-wise, all three of the main cast are excellent. Technically speaking, I really loved the music and the costumes. The one thing that stood out to me in a negative light was the editing, and specifically the number of fades between scenes and shots that Scorsese chose to include. There are literally hundreds of them, and while fades are a completely fine and normal tool in a filmmaker's arsenal, I do think they were overused here to the point of standing out and not in a good way. But all in all, that is a minor gripe. I think overall The Age of Innocence is a perfectly good costume piece, interesting both as its own thing that has something to say, and as this example of a renowned filmmaker stepping outside of his usual niche.